Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Yanid bhutani samagatani bummani va yani va antalikke sabbeva bhuta sumana bhavantu atopi sakkacca sunantu bhasitam tasmahi bhuta nisameta sabbe mettam karota manusya pajaya divacha rattocha haranti ye balin tasmahine rakkata appamatta. Venerable Chief Naika Hamduru, Venerable Sirs, friends and children in the Dhamma, good evening and welcome for our Saturday Dhamma talk. Probably you must be well aware that we are initiating the series of Dhamma talks based on the Jewel Sutta, based on the Ratana Sutta. This is one of the most popular among all the protective chantings, what do we call the parittas, warding or chasing away the evil influences upon us. This Ratana Sutta is so popular, even during the Buddha alive itself. Therefore, there is no beginning as such, Evang Me Suttam, uttered by Venerable Ananda, because it was such a popular sutta that most of the monks, as well as the lay people, have by-hearted this sutta as well as the Karanyametta Sutta. So it was naturally enlisted in the Tipitaka as something people know generally in the common sense. Therefore, while the Buddha was alive, he has already introduced a method called Satchakiriya. Translated, it means solemn assertion or solemn declaration of the truth and invoking the blessing out of it. Now, this particular sutta, this Jewel Sutta, is an ideal example for such a method of receiving blessing, generating blessing, or creating protection around with the assertion, with the solemn assertion of the truth. Now, prior to the explanation of this beautiful sutta, which has of course 17 verses, our plan is to explain these verses in the sense of presenting the Dhamma which is hidden or embedded in these verses, and creating an understanding of this sutta deeply within us, so that when we are chanting or when we are listening to this sutta, it can generate such an inspiration within us, and ultimately or finally it will reach for our transformation. As it happened when the Buddha was teaching this sutta. Of course, this sutta was taught in Vesali or Vishala. This is a very famous city in India during the Buddha's time. Of course, even today, the district of Vaishali is there in Bihar, bordering the Himalayas. So, this Vaishali or Vishala was considered one of a very prosperous, pleasant, well-developed, rich and well-populated city. And this city is the capital of the kingdom called Vajjis. The Vajjians are ruled by the democratic republic run by the group of kings. Actually, this is a very big group. 7,700 kings were there. All these kings are called Lichavis. This is something very interesting. We have to understand about this background behind this sutra, for the reason that it presents certain kind of Dhamma. Now, Lichavis, if you translate into English, it generally means fair skin or no skin. In the Majjhima Nikaya, there is an occasion that the Buddha compares these Lichavis, the kings or princes, this clan of Lichavis, are similar to the divine beings. Their appearance, their look is, their outside appearance is similar to the divine beings. So if you want to know the appearance of the divine beings, look at the Lichavis. They are just like divine beings. And these Lichavis ran their kingdom called Vajji. If you translate this, Vajji means confined, prohibited or separated. Mostly separated. Now, from whom it was separated? It was separated by the kingdoms which were run by monarchs. The monarchy were the sole rulers of those kingdoms around these Vajjis, kingdom of Vajjis, and these Vajjis ran their kingdom based on similar to the democratic manner or democratic republics. Not completely just like the present day democratics, but quite similar to it. And we can consider the Vajjian country or the kingdom of Vajjians were the first or one of the first democratics, republics in the world. Even prior to the, most probably even prior to the republics of Romans. And they ran this kingdom based on the common interest, coming into the conclusions with the discussions, with discussing their matters together. So Buddha taught later on. Now this sutta, Ratana Sutta, was taught in the early part of the Buddha's ministry, very early part of the Buddha's ministry. But later on, Buddha used to visit this city so often that Buddha taught this Lichavis a specific Dhamma called Satta Aparihaniya Dhamma. If you translate it, the 7 conditions of welfare. And this Satta Aparihaniya Dhamma is specifically taught to these Lichavis because of their way of running the country. It is a democratic republic. So they gather together. Buddha says, gather often. That is the first rule. Gather as often as possible. The second rule, gather in unity. Discuss in unity. Make decisions in unity and activate them in unity. And the third one, don't break the norms, the rules, regulations that were given by your elders, by your ancestors. Preserve the rules and regulations granted by your ancestors. Protect all sorts of places of worship. Respect the freedom of religion in your country. Respect the honor of women in your country. Don't harm them. Protect them. Respect them. Respect your elders. Accept their advices. And treat and take care when an enlightened master comes to your country. Protect them so that they will come to your country often. So likewise, Buddha gave these 7 conditions of welfare, Satta Aparihaniya Dhamma, simply because the way of their running the country is dependent upon the concessions that they decided, activated to run their country peacefully to the prosperity. And this Satta Parihanyatam, 7 conditions of welfare, is considered as one of the most important teachings of the Buddha. And sure enough, nobody could defeat these Vajjayans as long as they follow the Buddha's teachings and preserve their unity and the peacefulness of their country. Nobody could defeat them. Even the great kings tried to defeat them, but nobody could defeat. So the Lichavis, the 300-league country, in comparison to today's calculation, it is about 3,600 to 4,500 kilometers. That much is the land that they ruled as their kingdom. Just in the other banks of the Ganges, the river Ganges, the other side of the river Ganges is Magadha, kingdom of Magadha. Then the other banks belong to the Vajjayans. It was such a prosperous and beautiful city. In the last journey of the Buddha, when Buddha was reaching to the final destination, Kusinara, for his passing away, Buddha visited this city, spent few days there, and took his meal and departed from this city. When he departed from the city, this is a rare occasion. Very rarely Buddha does this. Do you know that when Buddha walks or travels, he doesn't look around like us? Or he doesn't look back also. Very rarely he looks back. If he wants to look back, looks behind, he will turn his body completely. It is like an elephant. Since the body of the elephant is bigger than his head, if the elephant wants to look back, he has to turn the body to look back, not just the neck. This is called Gajavalokana. Gaja is elephant. Avalokana is observing or look. So Buddha made the Gajavalokana when he departed this city. He looked back, turned his body completely and looked back this Vishala, this city of Vishala, and said, Ananda, this is my last time I see this city. Yeah. For such a visit or such a look to make, this city must have looked so beautiful, majestic and splendid. And Buddha appreciated it. The way they are running it, the way they are maintaining it, and the way they have granted all the living beings in the city to live peacefully, happily, and in the prosperous manner. And in this city there was a famous courtesan, not only in the Buddhist scriptures, but also in the Indian scriptures, that this woman is mentioned. She's a courtesan. She's called Pāli or Pāli. She was so powerful, it says that she helped to build this city that beautiful and that powerful. She was one of the few individuals who helped to build such a powerful city, Pāli. And Pāli is someone mentioned in the suttas that she offered her beautiful pleasure park, mango trees, full of mango trees. She offered it to the Buddha, and even she got ordained in her later part of the life. In her old days, she got ordained. So this Vishala is holding a certain importance in the Buddha's life. Yeah. Many times Buddha visited this beautiful city and spent there and taught many teachings in this beautiful city. And of course, in the early part of the Buddha's life, this incident occurred, that this city was hit by a dire, long-lasting drought. For years, no rain. And what happened? Lack of food. Food was getting scarce. Lack of food made the poor in the city to die first. Of course, there are 7,700 kings are there. There are ministers, there are palaces, and everything is there. So they did not die, but the poor started dying, and nobody even to take these dead bodies away and burn them. Dead bodies are there, people are dying, corpses are heaping up, and they are decaying on the same spot where they died. And the whole city is getting stinked, getting full of evil smells. When the evil smells are prevailing, all those evil spirits started attracting. And moreover, the citizens were getting certain kind of pestilence, and they got sicknesses in their stomachs. So the triple sicknesses, triple fears overwhelmed this city. The fear of drought, the fear of evil spirits, and the fear of pestilence. They were suffering continuously, and nobody to help them. And no one knew how to stop this. Again, those 7,700 kings gathered, and they started discussing what to do. And they decided, we must bring in somebody highly spiritual, somebody who has developed the spirituality to the top. That person can help us to get rid of these three fears. And by that time, Buddha was just a young enlightened master. There were many other so-called enlightened masters in India who are older than the Buddha, who are popular than the Buddha. They are called Shastru, 6 heretical masters. That is how Buddhism introduced them. They are Purnakashap, Makkali Gosal, Ajitakesa Kambalin, Pakudakachayana, Sanjay Bellatiputta, and Nigantanataputta. They were famous with many students, and they are in their old age. So at first, they discussed to bring one of those 6 teachers to their city and get the blessings to get rid of this problem. But ultimately they came into the conclusion that though young, though newly started his mission, Gautama the Buddha is much more powerful, fully enlightened, respected by kings, ministers, Brahmins, and even divine beings. Let's go and invite Gautama the Buddha, Gautama the Blessed One, to this city. When they search about his whereabouts, they found that the Buddha was currently existing in the city of Rajagaha. They were not in contact with the Buddha personally, so they had to go through the king of the country, King Bimbisara. One of the Lichavis knew this king personally as a friend. So he went there, requested the king to invite the Buddha to come to their city and to help them to overcome this problem. Of course, king brought this Lichavi to the Buddha's presence and the Buddha accepted. Then the king decorated the city from Rajagaha to the river Ganges. The length is around 5 leagues, and it took 5 days for the Buddha to travel to the river Ganges, and then in the Ganges he got into a boat, decorated boat, and Buddha was not alone. There were 500 monks following him, including Venerable Ananda. And Venerable Ananda was very important in this situation because he is the one who did the blessing for the city. As soon as Buddha set foot on the lands of Vajjayans, there was a thunderstorm and a torrents of rains, heavy rain after years of drought. With that rain, those dead bodies scattered in the city was swept away, cleaned the body. And from the river Ganges, it took 3 days for the Buddha to reach the city of Visala, because there were 3 leagues of distance from the Ganges to the city. When Buddha just entered the city, what happened? Those evil spirits, ghosts you can say, those evil spirits started running away, because with the Buddha came invisibly the king of the gods, the Sakra, and many other thousands of gods. As the king of the gods, Sakra, and other gods approaching, those evil spirits couldn't stay anymore. They, of course, ran away. They left the city. And in the evening, Buddha taught this sutra Ratana Sutta to Venerable Ananda and gave him his alms bowl and asked Venerable Ananda travel in the city together with the Lichavi princess, reciting this sutta. Now, Venerable Ananda is someone who can remember as soon as he heard for the first time. You no need to repeat for Venerable Ananda. He can remember. His memory was that sharp. So, Venerable Ananda is the ideal one for the Buddha to teach this sutta and grant this mission to fulfill. And it says, throughout the nights, Venerable Ananda was walking in the city and sprinkling the water out of the Buddha's alms bowl while he was chanting this sutra. And when he was chanting, the miracle was happening. The problem of the pestilence in the intestines of the people were getting cured. And the darkness of the evil remaining spirits were moving out. The city was getting vibrant, positive again. So after traveling throughout the city, Venerable Ananda came to the hall where Buddha was currently living with the other monks. Venerable Ananda returned and Buddha again preached this sutra. And it says, for 7 days, Buddha preached this sutra again and again for the crowds who gathered to listen to the Buddha. This is the sutra he taught, nothing else. So it seems that the Buddha wanted to make sure that these people learn this sutra, so that whenever there is trouble in such magnitude, in such kind of, they can use this sutra to ward off that trouble. So after 7 days, Buddha left this city and returned to the Ganges, and these kings in Vishala, Lichavi kings, they had built a special platform. On 2 boats, they had laid some wood, some timber, and they had made a beautiful platform for the Buddha to travel across. Now in Chulavansa, the minor chronicles in Sri Lanka, they say this sutra, the Ganga Rohana Sutra, they have given a new name for this, because this sutra was uttered after traveling across this river twice. And especially there was this ceremony that the Buddha traveled on this platform in this river. And because of that special ceremony that the Buddha traveled across the river in that beautiful platform made by these kings in Vesali, because of that ceremony, and this sutra was named Ganga Rohana Sutra. Ganga Rohana Sutra. Yeah. So after that, of course, Buddha traveled back to the monastery in Veluvanarama monastery. Now, this sutra is such an important sutra in the sense of receiving blessings. Each of the stanzas you will see and you know are ended with the invoking of the blessing. etena saccena suatti hotu. Etena saccena, by the power of this truth, suatti hotu. May you be well and happy. Such kind of utterance is there at each of these stanzas. Now, as I said before, this sutra is consisting 17 verses. Out of these 17 verses, the first two are not about this blessing. The first two is a request made for the spirits, especially for the divine beings. Yeah. And the last three verses are not from the Buddha. That is the paying of respect of King of the gods, the Sakra. On behalf of all the other deities, this Sakra, King of the gods, paid respect to the Buddha. And that paying of respect is in the last three verses. So other than these last three verses and the first two verses, the rest of the 12 verses are on the virtues of the Tripajam, Buddha, Dhamma and Saṅgha. And after reciting the virtues, then invoke the blessing. Etena saccena suhatti hotu. This is the specific or special method where blessings are invoked in Buddhism. Not asking blessing from somebody invisible and powerful. Not asking blessing from some extra terrestrial agency. Asking them to or him to protect us. No such thing. But to say something truthful. In this case, the truth is nothing but the truth of the Master, truth of the enlightened, supremely enlightened Buddha, and the truth in his utterances, in his teachings, and the truth of his enlightened followers. The followers on the supramundane path, they are truths. So these are not general truths. These are kind of Ratanam Panitam, supremely valuable, jewel-like valuable truths. They are talking about the pinnacle of spiritual cultivation. In that pinnacle, what kind of qualities arise? They are the qualities that are explained in these verses. So, reciting those superhuman qualities in Buddha, Dhamma and Saṅgha, then at the end says, Etena saccena suhatti hotu. By the power of this truth, by the power of this absolute, ultimate truth, may the blessing happen. Now this is called Satchakiriya. Now this Satchakiriya you can find even in the Jataka tales. Yeah. Now there is this story that Bodhisattva, the Buddha to be, in his continuous journey in the samsara, he took birth as a bird. He was just a baby bird, just growing up, on the nest. And one day there was a bonfire erupted in the vicinity, and now it is raging up. This small bird, sitting in his nest, he can feel the heat, the power of the raging fire around him. His mother, his father, nowhere to find. They have gone away looking for food, and there is no way they can come back now. And he had elder brothers, sisters. They had flown away in the fear of that raging fire. He's the only one who cannot fly, who cannot walk. So he was desperate. But this is not just simple bird. A bodhisattva in the form of bird. He has his former power of spiritual development called parami within him. And it says, he recited, he uttered the absolute truth visible to him at that dire moment. He said, Santipakka apatana. I have feathers, it is true, but I am unable to fly apatana. Santipada avanjana. I have legs, it is true, but avanjana, I cannot walk. That is also true. Mata pita cha nikkanta. Mother and father also gone, nikkanta. Jati veda patikama. May this arisen fire be quenched, be extinguished. And it says, as soon as he finished these lines, these sentences, the fire around the tree was extinguished instantaneously. That kind of power, that kind of positive power to protect one, to protect oneself is there in this utterance of truthfulness. Satya Kiriya. Solemn utterance of truthfulness. For this, there are few things to be completed. That person must be a virtuous person. That person is somebody who never tells a lie, who always preserves the truthfulness, even at the risk of his own life. That is the first quality must be there. The second quality is there must be something solid, something powerful in the existence for him to present. And there must be certain strong concentration within him. And there must be spiritual development within him in the form of parami. Included all these together, when somebody uttered a truth and invoked the blessing out of it, there's a possibility that aspiration to be fulfilled, that expectation to be met. But of course, this is something we can also practice. When something good is done, if you did it wholeheartedly, if you did it with absolute confidence, with absolute awareness, with the absolute genuine sacrifice. Then when you reflect about it, if you can see that your performance of that good deed is without the blemishes of evilness within or without, but the pure heart and the pure material aspect, then of course, when you reflect on that, when you see the purity within and without on that action, then you can use that action to invoke blessing out of it, to make an aspiration. There is a surety for that aspiration to be fulfilled. This is the singular most method of invoking blessing in Buddhism. Because in Buddhism we do not have any kind of understanding that we can receive blessings from outside. Hence Buddha said, Attahi attano nato. You are your own protection. You are your own nato, leader, protection, and the refuge. It all depends upon you. You do good, the good will come to you. Bad is done, bad will come back to you. When you do bad, and when the bad comes to you, you seek protection from somebody else, it doesn't work. Bad will not stop coming to you just because you ask protection from somebody else. It is your own doing. So therefore, there is no protection from anybody else other than our own protection. So if we make a protection of ourselves is based on our own deeds. Deeds done with pure heart, deeds done with happiness, and deeds done for the bliss, joy, happiness for yourself and others are the good deeds. Remembering them and invoking blessing out of it, saying, I did this genuinely with a pure heart, no blemishes is there. It is a truth. By the power of this truth, may this aspiration be fulfilled. There is a surety. There is an hope. There is a hope there, that aspiration to be fulfilled. This is called Satchakiriya. And throughout this stanza, throughout the 12 stanzas of this sutra, this Satchakiriya is repeatedly invoking and granting. Of course, the first 2 stanzas are about inviting the spirits, divine beings, who gathered there. Because as the Buddha coming into the city, the visible retinue was the monks, 500 monks, headed by Venerable Ananda. That is the visible retinue. But invisibly, there were divine beings. Divine beings are, we know, 6 groups of these divine beings. They are the divine beings in the trees, in the vicinity to the grounds, basically on the trees. They are called Bhumma Deva, the divine beings on the earth. They are the divine beings on trees, and in some cases, in all these mountains, other natural backgrounds where they have made their homes. Bhumma Deva. Now, when you read the sutra called Dhamma Sutta, you can find when Buddha gave his first Dhamma sermon, the first to listen and first to say sadhu, first to rejoice was the divine beings on the trees. Then the hierarchy rise up, Bhumma Deva, then Chatum Maharajik, Tavatingsa, Yama, Tusita, Nimmanarati, Paranimita Vasavatti. And then going Aviha Atappa Sudassa Sudasya Akanita. There is a Brahma realm who are not capable of listening or talking or any other activities in the world. They are completely aloof. Though they are a Brahma realm, they are not connected with any other realm. They are called Asanya Satta. The realm where only the physical body exists, the mind is almost dead, almost absent, or not. It is not functioning. Mind is not functioning. Asanya Satta. Yeah. Other than this Asanya Satta realm, where the mind is not functioning, where the sanya, the perception is not functioning, we call them non-percipient beings. Other than these non-percipient beings, the rest of the 16, mostly 15 Brahma realms. So when Buddha says he invite Bhumma Nivaya Nivantalike, beings in the terrestrial and beings in the celestial. Beings in the celestial are the beings who belong to the realms of 7 divine realms. Out of these 7, the Bhumma Deva, the beings in the earth, or the divine beings on the earth, are the terrestrial, Bhumma Deva. The rest of the 6 divine realms are the celestial and also the Brahma realms. So together with the Brahma realms and the divine realms are called Antalikke. If you translate this Antalikke properly, it means intermediate space. Antalikke, intermediate space. This intermediate space is the space between the human realm and probably the ozone layer. The ozone layer and the human realm, in between whatever divine realm, whatever realm exists, invisible to us, that realm is Antalikke. So in this sutra, the divine realms have interpreted as the realms in the intermediate space, Antalikke. So Buddha invites all these beings, Bhumma Niva, in the terrestrial, on the earth. They are the divine realms, divine beings who exist on trees, mountains, creepers, in all sorts of natural phenomena. The divine beings. In this verse, Buddha's invitation is not for any visible living beings, such as human or animal, on the earth. When he says Bummaniva on the earth, the beings on the earth is specifically are the divine beings who live on those trees and mountains. And then Antalikke, the beings who are living in the intermediate space. Antalikke are the beings, divine beings, in the 6 divine realms and the rest of the Brahma realms that I just mentioned. So Buddha invite them, and we will talk about, for the purpose of inviting all these invisible divine beings in our next talk. Okay? That's enough for today. Let's share the joy, the happiness, the meritorious power that occurred within us, that happened within us, together with our departed ones, as well as the divine beings. Let's share these merits. Akasatta cha bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu loka sasanam. Akasatta cha bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu desanam. Akasatta cha bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu mam paranti. Idamme ñātinam hotu sukhita hontu ñātayo. Idamme ñātinam hotu sukhita hontu ñātayo. Idamme ñātinam hotu sukhita hontu ñātayo. Blessings for you. Dukkha roga bhaya vera soka sabbe upaddava anekantaraya pi vinasantu cha tejasa jaya siddhi dhanam labham sotti bhagyam sukham balam siriyayu cha vanno cha bhogam buddhi cha yasava satavasa cha ayu cha jiva siddhi bhavantu te ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevacha ato nibbana sampatti iminate samijjatu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.